Facing fears. The whole thing was Chris's idea. Well, to be more specific, it was their mom's, but Chris was the one that got Susie involved. It was just some dumb school function, the kind of thing Susie would never think twice about, but Chris had convinced her. That she got to scare her classmates witless didn't hurt, though. Really, if Susie was going to sign up to help with a school function, she could do a lot worse than a haunted house. So that was how she found herself dressed up like a human with a dumb rubber mask, hiding behind a wall and snickering to herself, because Caddy and Jockington were next to go through. "Don't worry, Caddy," Jockington said. "Jockington will protect you." Caddy stared blankly ahead without answering. "Hoy!" Temmie said as they approached the entrance. "3 months for enter." "Come on, Tim. You can let Jockington and his date slide, right?" Jockington asked with a grin. No." Temmie held out a collection jar. 3 months. "Fine," Caddy said, paying $6 for the two of them to enter, and Temmie gave them their tickets. Susie prepared herself for the first couple of the night. That had to be even more fun than scaring the single people, and she couldn't wait to see Jockington scream like a little girl and jump into Caddy's arms. They stepped into the haunted house, and the pre-recorded voice sounded, "You dare to enter my domain?" "Whoa, killer effects," Jockington said. Caddy looked unimpressed. They stepped into the darkness of the house, and Susie took her cue to jump out at them. "Ah! I'm going to eat your face!" Predictably, Jockington screamed. "Caddy? Did Caddy just smile at her?" Jockington pulled them forward, where Chris was waiting. They were in a table with a hole cut out for their head, and they just stared at them blankly. Jockington screamed even louder at that, and finally jumped into Caddy's arms like Susie wanted. She just dropped him and kept walking. They had a minute before their next victim, so Susie pulled up her rubber human mask. "Man, Chris, how do you do it? First Birdley and now Jockington." Chris opened their mouth to talk, but Susie just kept going. "Just wait. I'm going to be the one that scares the pants off the next schmuck to walk in here." Susie pulled down her mask and got back into place. There was no way that Chris was going to be a scarier human than she was. "Hi, Temmie. How's the collection going?" Susie glanced out from her hiding place to see Noelle talking with Temmie. Perfect. Everyone knew Noelle was a scaredy cat. Susie would send her running long before she got to Chris. "Tim collects so many Muns. Save up big for class trip." "Yeah, it looks like you've got $9. Noelle smiled. "Keep up the good work. Here, keep the change." $5? Temmie went wide-eyed. "Thank you so much." "No problem, Temmie. Noelle blushed. Is Susie really one of the scarers?" "Susie's so scare. Make Tim super frightened." "I'll take that as a yes. Thanks again, Temmie." Okay, she was coming toward the house. Susie got into position and grinned beneath her mask. "You dare to enter my domain?" "Oh my." Noelle already sounded scared. This was going to be a cakewalk. Susie jumped out and held out her arms as if she was going to grab Noelle. "I'll eat your face!" Noelle backed up and screamed a little, but it ended with a giggle. "Wow, Susie, you really scared me." That wasn't right. Noelle's face was bright red, but she didn't look scared. Susie didn't know what to do. Thanks. Keep up the good work." Noelle walked further in, and she saw Chris. They lifted their head and gave Noelle a blank look. For some reason, that caused Noelle to scream. Really scream this time, and she turned tail and fled, running right past Susie to get out of the haunted house. The pre-recorded voice went off on her way out, and Susie was just left staring as Noelle ran away. She turned to Chris and glared. "Great going, dude. You only frickin' traumatized her." Chris didn't respond. Susie sighed. "Look, I know we're supposed to scare people, but maybe try to keep it toned down a little. Noelle is... she's scared of, everything." Chris stuck their head under the table and popped out in front of it. They walked over to Susie and put a hand on her shoulder, then pointed at where Noelle ran off. "No way. You go after her. Why should I clean up your mess?" Chris just shrugged and went back to the table. "Arg, fine. I'll go." Susie ripped off her human mask and threw it into her hiding spot. "I swear, I always get stuck with the worst jobs." Susie stormed off, ignoring the voice that sounded on her way out. Now then, where did Noelle go? Susie shoved her hands into her jacket pockets and started walking. This whole thing was dumb. Stupid Noelle. Stupid Chris. She wasn't walking too far when she came to a bus stop with a bench at it. Noelle was sitting there with her hands folded in her lap, staring at the ground. Susie walked over and stood next to the bench. She wasn't sure what to say, so she waited for Noelle to notice her. It took a moment, but when Noelle did notice her, she jumped up and had a horrified expression on her face. Susie wondered if she had a cold or something, because once again her face was beet red. Susie! Why couldn't she get a reaction like that at the haunted house? Susie wasn't even trying to scare her now. Hey. What are you doing here? Susie looked away and scratched her head. Well, Chris wanted me to check on you. Oh. Noelle sat down. I probably hurt Chris's feelings by running off like that. Susie shrugged and took a seat next to Noelle. It's a haunted house. You're supposed to be scared. But, you're supposed to run the other way. You know, see the rest of the house. Yeah, Noelle suddenly leaned closer to Susie, putting her hands on Susie's as she did. Can you keep a secret? Sure, I guess. I've always been a little afraid of Chris. What? Why? Well, Noelle frowned and turned away, but she kept her hand on Susie's. They're a human. Susie shrugged. Yeah, so? Humans are scary. I mean, I know Chris is alright. We've been friends for like ever. But other humans, I mean. I'm sure other humans aren't so bad, Susie said, though she had never actually met another human. You're right. It's just this dumb fear I've always had. Noelle used the hand that wasn't on Susie's to brush her hair out of her face. Anyway, Chris isn't nearly as scary as their mom. Do not try to swipe one of her pies while it's cooling. Seriously. Noelle laughed. I'll keep that in mind. Miss Toriella's always been so nice, though. Yeah, she is. Wonder how she wound up with a screw-up like Chris. Aw, Chris is really good, too. Susie grinned. Yeah, they are, but don't tell them I said that. Noelle blushed again. You know, I used to be afraid of humans under the bed. It didn't help that Chris hid under my bed to scare me once. Susie had to hold in her laughter, but it still came out as a snark. That was pretty hilarious. She wished she could have seen it. That was bad. Noelle giggled. You've probably never been afraid of anything. Susie bowed her head and frowned. Visions of facing the king, not knowing what was going to happen, especially towards the end when it looked like he was going to win for sure. No, I've been scared before. Really? But you're so... Susie smiled a little. Yeah, I know. I'm the one everyone is afraid of. I wasn't going to say that. Noelle pulled her hand away from Susie's to cover her mouth. I just meant, well, you're so tough, is what I was going to say. Heh, yeah I am. Susie stood up. So you want to know the key to being tough? What's that? Don't stop just because you're afraid. Susie jerked her head towards the haunted house. Come on, you can't be scared all the time. Let's go through the haunted house together. Noelle blinked. You want to go together? Susie shrugged. Yeah, sure. I'm scarier than anything in there, so, you know, I'll protect you? Noelle stood up as well. Thank you, Susie. They walked back together, and Susie walked them up to the door. Hoy, Temmie said. Going in the house is 3 monies. Susie grinned, ready for a chance to show off. Don't worry, Tim. She's with me. Temmie pulled a sign out that said no exceptions. Everyone has to pay up. Even Tim pays for tickets. What? Susie gave her a surprised look. But I work here. No exceptions. Susie turned out her pockets. All she had was half a stick of chalk. But I don't have any money. Don't worry about it, Noelle said, reaching into her own pockets and pulling out some money. I'll pay for us. Susie wanted to protest. It had been her idea to come back to the haunted house. Noelle shouldn't have to pay. But in the end, she settled on saying, I'll, pay you back later. Noelle waved dismissively. Don't worry about it. It's my treat for protecting me. Thankies, Temmie said as she gave them their tickets. Susie was still grumbling as they walked towards the haunted house, but there was nothing she could do. As they entered, the voice sounded, You dare to enter my domain? Noelle smiled. Is that Toriel? Yeah, Susie said with a laugh. Pretty good, right? Yeah, Noelle agreed. I guess Chris is up first. Right. Susie looked into where she knew Chris would be obscured by the darkness. She shook her head to signal for them to not scare Noelle. As much as she had wanted to see the dear girl scared before, now she kind of didn't. As they walked into the dark, she felt Noelle's hand wrap around hers. Susie's mind went blank and her eyes went wide, unsure of what to think. Instinctively, her hand tightened around Noelle's. As they walked deeper into the house, Chris was nowhere in sight. Their table was there, but their head wasn't sticking out of it. Susie assumed they were hiding underneath, having gotten the message not to scare her this time. After that, Susie wasn't exactly sure what to expect. She hadn't been into the rest of the house. She and Chris were stationed right in the front, so she didn't really have a reason to. It might have been kind of cool to see the rest of the house, except she could only focus on the hand in her own. Why had Noelle done that? Why had Susie held her hand back? Boo! Snowy jumped out at them, looking ridiculous in the human mask that didn't make him look anything like a human. You're about to be dearly departed. Susie wanted to groan. Why did he think that was scary? But before she got the chance, Noelle screamed and jumped into Susie's arms. On instinct, Susie caught her, and she just stared blankly ahead with no idea of what was going on. The rest of the walk through the haunted house was a blur. Something that wasn't really scary would happen. Noelle would get scared anyway, and she'd get close to Susie. The entire rest of their trip was like that. Susie's heart was racing, and not because of the house. What was going on? How was she supposed to respond to something like this? She didn't even realize that her arm was around Noelle until they walked out of the house. When had that happened? How had that happened? Thank you so much for helping me, Noelle said. She came to a stop, so Susie did too. Sorry I was such a baby. Hey, it's no sweat. Susie blinked as she took her arm back, not really sure what else to do. Noelle looked away for a moment, then looked back. Susie? Yeah? Noelle stood on her tiptoes to kiss Susie's cheek, and for a moment she just stared at her. Then Noelle screamed and ran away, and Susie was left standing there by herself. She watched as Noelle ran off with no idea of what to do. Her hand drifted to her cheek, and one thought came to her mind. This was the scariest thing that had ever happened to her. She heard footsteps, so she turned around. Chris was staring at her blankly. What? She demanded. Without showing any sign of emotion at all, they silently gave her a thumbs up. Susie gritted her teeth and ran after them. Laughing, Chris ran back into the house, where Susie followed. Get back here and say that to my face! Susie stopped before she went all the way inside. She looked back in the direction Noelle had run off in. She wasn't really sure what had just happened, but she was pretty sure she wouldn't mind it happening more often. Then she shook those thoughts from her head and went back into the haunted house. Whoever came in next was going to get the scare of a lifetime. Thank you for listening in. Please like the video if you enjoyed the reading, and subscribe to be informed about future readings. Until next time, stay tuned.